Hey everybody, Zane here. Today we're going to talk about how we turn a Cotoneaster in development into something like this. So this tree, I think it's about, it's been in development for probably 4, maybe 5 years, and maybe 6 years now. And I got it from regular nursery stock just like this, and wired it up, selected the branches, started, pruning back, creating pads, and now it's turned into something like this, which is really beautiful, one of my favorite trees. So again, it started from humble beginnings like this. This was $11 nursery stock, $10.98. I bought both of these together, and I wired them in a similar way, but a little bit different. So we're gonna go ahead and clean them up, and I think we're gonna put them in larger pots to let them develop even more. So let me put this away to be safe. And we're gonna start trimming. So let's actually start with this one. And I'm gonna actually pull it out of the pot so you can see the structure. Wow, there's a lot of nice healthy roots on here too. I don't know if you can see that, but this tree is looking pretty good. All right, I'm just pulling off some of these clover roots here. But anyway, so the first thing I'm going to do right now is just kind of remove a little bit of the layers, or the soil off the top here. There's some spent fertilizer and just, some, the whole purpose of doing this, I want to see what the base looks like. What's unique about Cotoneasters is when these branches kind of fall down and touch the ground, they will start to root themselves. So right here, you actually have this root that's going out this way and this way, but these were branches before, so they just kind of, were low to the ground and decided to become roots. So that's one way to create a more thick base on your Cotoneasters. So, and you don't have to do anything. You just keep it in a pot and it kind of does it by itself. But if you have branches that are a little lower, then maybe keep them instead of cutting them off. All right. So the first thing that I'm doing right now is taking any of these little suckers off of the trunk. I am going to leave this little branch right here because that will eventually hit the ground and turn into a root. So that is that's what I was talking about. I'm also going to cut off any upward growth on top of these pads. I'm not really worried about making them super nice right now, but I just want to create some space between each pad and try to kind of figure out what I'm working with here. This will move pretty fast. I'm just trimming back a little bit. I'm going around and seeing where I have my pads that I've created, and I want to see what the front of the tree, I don't yet know where the front of the tree is, but I'll figure that out eventually. I'm pulling off some of these little kind of suckers that are coming off of the trunk, but I want to also be mindful that, I could leave some on. So if you want to look at just kind of like a really traditional structure, I have my left branch or my right branch, depending on what direction. Then I've got my next branch, and then a lot of times the next one will be kind of on the back. I don't yet have a branch right there, but that's fine. It might be that this branch eventually comes off and this will be the first one, so I could do 1, like 2, and then maybe have one of these take off. So I'm looking at the little pieces of growth I have here. Looks like I have kind of a back branch right there. I have 1, 2, 3, and there's another one coming off this side. I think I'm going to remove that. Now that does create some space right there, but this back branch, as it starts to fill in, will help make the tree look more full, so just needs to fill in. All right, now we're getting closer up toward the top. I'm just, I don't really know, again, what the final design is gonna look like, but by just kind of trusting the process of trimming those shoots off, and kind of picking your branches and letting them go, you'll be all right. Okay. Take this guy off. It's got a little bit of shape there. I'm also going to be looking inside here to see if I have any bar branches that are starting. So I know I have this. I've got my back branch. I've got this next branch right here that I really like. And then I either want to keep this front branch or this back branch here. Let's see. This front branch could be wired down and put over underneath this, or this back branch could be removed. I don't know yet. I don't think I'm going to make a decision on that just yet. I'm keeping this one growing out a little bit. I don't know if I'll cut it off. Let's see. The cool thing about Cotoneasters is if you make a mistake and cut something off that you didn't intend to, they backbud a lot. So you'll have a branch somewhere at some point and be okay. Ooh, there's a little berry on top of here. What's cool is you can plant these seeds or you can plant the little berries and they'll grow little trees. I've had a lot of success with that. So give it a shot. All right. Yeah, I have some bar branches up toward the top, but I'm not gonna worry about that just yet. I don't think it's time. You know what, I am gonna trim that back. Trim that back. Trim this back. This a little bit too. Get rid of some of that bottom growth. Let's see what we got. It's nothing special yet, but it's starting the process toward becoming a nice little tree. I'm gonna cut some of these roots off. So I think that's the front of the tree. So you got your main branch right here. This might eventually be the main branch, but for now the movement is going kind of in a circular direction. I think one thing I can do is reduce this a little bit. But let me see from the front. I think this is the front again. Yeah, so I'm gonna reduce this a little bit in order to create the weight on this side of the tree. So I wanna go back that way. So I wanna prioritize this lower branch. So I'm cutting back this thicker branch to redirect some of the energy toward this little guy over here. Cut that. There we go. And again, for now, I'm not gonna worry about the apex. I may come in and chop this even shorter. We'll see, but I think my plan for this guy is to put it into a bigger pot. And I like to use cactus and succulent soil when I'm potting these guys. Ooh, that's muddy. Cactus and succulent soil is nice because it allows plenty of drainage and air to get in. Okay, so the pot I'm going to use is this shorter terracotta pot. I think these are azalea pots. And I'm not going to use bonsai soil just yet. Just going to use some cactus and succulent soil. I might mix in some additional, like you can mix in pumice or perlite. That can be really helpful. All right, I'm going to loosen these roots a little bit. So that way, when I pot this into the next pot, they don't just stay in this like initial kind of wrapping form around this. So I want to trim some of these roots off, so that way the next time I pot, it'll be a little easier. So I'm getting some of this like kind of heavier soil out. The soil this was in was really poor. It's like kind of muddy right now. But I'm just gonna come in and trim this back. Yeah, that's really muddy. And any like really long roots right now, I'm gonna take those off. So that way, when I do my next potting, I don't have to worry about being so drastic. The first pot, and I have not repotted this tree before, so just a heads up. But the first time you repot your tree from nursery stock, it's gonna have a lot of strength. So you can kind of be a little more aggressive at the beginning. So really it's gonna bounce back really quickly because it's had a lot of strength to grow in a bigger pot over time. So you should really capitalize on this opportunity. Don't just take a little bit, if you need to get it into a smaller pot or something, don't just take a little bit of roots off. Maybe take a little bit more to get down to the place that you need to fit it into that pot. That said, I don't need to take a lot of roots off here because I'm putting it into a pot that has more space. However, there are some thick roots in here that I wanted to just kind of chop off now to not worry about. Okay. Yeah, there's one here. I don't know if you can see it, but it goes out over this way and like kind of juts straight back down. And that kind of a funky little root. I'm gonna leave that for now because I can cut that later. But again, what's cool is this was a branch that fell down and now has become a root that's kind of creating some real depth with, and flare on the outside of the tree here. So it's pretty cool. I am going to trim this back a little bit there. But when you're trimming a root back, you'll notice that there's little branches coming off of the root. So I'm trimming there, but those branches will get strong. And, those little kind of root pieces, and they will, the energy will be redistributed to these little guys and they'll get thicker. So I'm trying to get the roots a little bit tighter toward the trunk. All right, here we go. So, get a little bit of perlite. So the soil I like to use when I'm doing tree bonsai is EV Stone cactus and succulent soil. This stuff is really nice. Not all cactus and succulent soil is made the same. This stuff I like because it doesn't have too many fines in it. It has sand, granite, pine bark, and it's just a good mix. It doesn't Yeah, a lot of good sand in there, but it allows it to dry really nicely, and it doesn't stay too wet like other soils would do. Some have like too much peat in there. This one, it's like minimal if it has peat at all. I'm also gonna mix in a little bit of perlite just to give it a little bit more aeration and drainage. I usually do pumice, but I didn't have any right now. So I'll do that. All right, I'm just gonna put this guy in here. I'm not even gonna tie it down because I'm gonna have plenty of soil around it. You can tie your trees down if you want, but I'm gonna put this on the ground in a safe place. So that way I'm not worried about wind blowing it over or anything like that. It'll be fine. And the soil here will be heavy enough that it'll stay right in the middle of this pot. Yeah, it even looks much better already sitting inside of this than it did in that nursery pot. All right. I'm using my chopstick just a little bit. Don't really need to do that much. Just to kind of get soil in the spaces where I cut some of those roots, but the soil here is more fine, you know, there's smaller pieces of it, so you don't have to sit there and chopstick something forever, because the small pieces of sand and you know, and pine bark and stuff will find its way into the little voids that we've created. So yeah, that's probably all I'm gonna do now with this little Cotoneaster, and we'll move on to the next one. There we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and water it in a little bit. So just know, after I pot something like this, I'm gonna water it. I'm also gonna keep it out of the sun, out of the hot sun. But right now I don't need to worry about that because my garden is kind of shady, because, you know, it's in between two houses. So I don't get tons of sun right now, so when I repot something, I don't have to like protect it too much during this time of year. All right, here is the next tree. I'm gonna pull this one out of the pot as well, because we're gonna do the same thing. A lot of really nice growth there. That's really nice. It's growing, one is growing pretty vigorously. I'm going to, again, take some of the soil off the top here because I want to see what the base looks like. One of the reasons for removing soil around the base is so you can see potentially like where the front of the tree would be. You want, in general, the widest base for the front of your tree. So, you know, the base of this tree, it's going, I have some roots that are going out that way, so this could be like a wider base than if I were looking at it this way. But that's actually a wide base too. So anyway, by being able to see the base of your tree, that will help you decide where the front of the tree is. Remember, these were $11 pieces of nursery stock, which is pretty cool. So you just start the process by wiring and picking the branches that you want, but all of these were like little dinky branches at one point, and I just kept letting them grow out, and then I'd cut back, let it grow out, and I cut back, and eventually they become substantial branches. So every time you cut each one of these little shoots, it's going to split into two. So it'll create more density pretty quickly and exponentially. So a branching of two, or a branching of one, when you cut it, will turn into two, and then two will turn into four 4 will turn into 8, 8 will turn into 16, 16 will turn into 32, 32 will turn into 64, 64 will turn into, is it 108? No, 128. Yes, 116, 64, 128, oh my gosh, sorry. Okay. Don't mind me, folks. All right, so this shoot right here it just came out of nowhere, and it's right next to this branch. So I need to remove this or else it's gonna create some swelling. So remember, you wanna get rid of your bar branches, or basically when you have multiple branches coming out of the same place, that will eventually create some swelling that is irreversible. It's called inverse taper. When you have inverse taper, it basically starts thick at the bottom, and then it gets narrow, and then it gets thick again, and it just is like kind of a design issue. You know, if you look at big trees in nature, also they don't have typically inverse taper. So, you know, if your whole goal is to make your tree look like a tree in nature, then you want to make sure you are doing the right actions at the right time. So removing those bar branches is really important. Okay, so I'm looking at the front of the tree. You all are looking at the back of it, I think. So again, I'm just removing kind of these little suckers that are coming off the branches or off the trunk. They tend to take off pretty quickly, so you want to get rid of them as they show up. I'm also going to create more uniformity with these pads. Okay. Yeah, it's really cool how much these backbud. When I first got these trees, I wasn't sure. You know, when I started to cut it back, what would happen? And I was like, whoa, this has plenty of options now. Another thing to note with Cotoneasters is they like a little bit deeper pots. I had one in a really shallow pot, and to my dismay, it was a really cool tree, and it was same as these guys, same nursery stock and everything. It started to just slowly decline over time, and I tried to do an emergency repot, but it was at like the wrong time of year, and the tree unfortunately didn't make it. But I learned that like there's the heart of the tree right under the trunk, and some trees need more space there to really protect the heart of the tree. So it's also called sheen, is another term for it. And I think that means the heart, again, of the tree. It's like a Japanese term. But yeah, something to be mindful of is keep it in a little bit deeper pot, or your tree might not make it. Making this a little more manageable. I'm not even worried about like cutting leaves in half at this point. I'm just kind of going in quickly and removing things. All right, so I've got this branch here. Might want to wire this down. Yeah, I need to wire that down. So I'll do that. And then as long as I don't have any kind of bar branches happening here, then I think we might be okay for now. Remove a couple of these little guys there. But just like we did for the other one, we're gonna go ahead and pot it. But before we do that, I'm gonna wire this branch down. It's important to wire these things when they're a little bit more young and pliable, because they will be very difficult to wire as it gets older. So like the trunk here, I can absolutely not wire that trunk again. It will, it's too established and it would just snap if I tried to wire it. Right. And just a little bit of wire I think is really going to help this tree. If you're cutting wire, you typically want wire cutters, but you can cut wire with the very, very back of your shears. These are Wazakura shears. I really like Wazakura. These are just kind of the regular ones. And then I also have the twig ones that I use on like my smaller trees and azaleas. But yeah, whatever I was just saying, I don't remember. All right, let's see. So I'm gonna wire 2 branches at once. I might wire this one and this one together here. So, it's important to anchor your branches together. So you usually wire 2 branches at a time, you know, if you can, in order to create stability. So if I were just kind of wrapping the wire right here and it was stopping, I wouldn't have stability. And this would not hold as strong as it needed to. So yeah, by wrapping your wire around another branch and turning the wire in opposite direction, you will have a stronger hold. And another thing, I'm just really going in here and wiring this like, I'm not being super clean about it because again, it will bounce back really quickly. So I'm just trying to get under there. I might be crushing a couple branches, but at this point, the tree is so young, it really just, it's gonna be fine. All right, there we go. All right, and then this one, I am going to, this one I'm gonna be a little bit more delicate with because it's smaller, but get it under there. And I think I'm gonna wire that one back a little bit more. I'm gonna bring that down as well, so it's at a different height. So, there you go. I think that's nice. Okay. Not bad. So there you go. We've got this tree right here. It's got some good direction. I've got this branch wired down a little bit to create some levels. This back one, I filled in this space right here and brought it down a little bit deeper. But now what we're gonna do is do the same thing we did with the other one and clean the roots out a little bit here. Yeah, there's a lot of new growth on these roots. These white roots right here are nice and healthy roots that we're starting to hit the side of the pot. So coming in right now and cleaning it up is gonna be good for the tree. So I'm just gonna come in and, like I did on the other one, just cut this guy in half. They're really fine roots, which is good. The soil mix was, well, it wasn't the greatest. I think it was like peat and sand and pine bark. All right. So now I'm gonna come in and get my wire out of here. I want to check out the trunk here because I have some funky roots that are kind of making the base like really weird. So I want to try to organize these roots as much as possible. They kind of look like a crab right now in a funny way. Okay. So knowing that this is the front of the tree, I want so this root is actually kind of coming up and out from under the tree, and this one is coming up and out from under this right here. I think what I'm going to do is remove this one. I know you probably can't see this, but that root was kind of problematic, so it would have eventually started to like kind of choke the tree out. So by removing that, now I have this stronger one on the other side, which looks more balanced. It was kind of like a funky, you know, two roots kind of coming out the same direction. You want, typically your, you know, if your tree's kind of leaning this way, you know, you have a stronger root pulling it over here. So, yeah. So I think that'll be nice. I am going to take a little bit more of the weight off the top here, though. I'm noticing it's getting a little heavy. This tree is really nice so far. I actually could put this in a smaller pot and let it develop a little bit more. I could put it in a bonsai pot now if I wanted to, and it would be a nice little tree. But I really want to develop it more and get that trunk thicker before I put it in a bonsai pot, because if I put it in a smaller pot, it's going to dramatically slow the growth, and the trunk will kind of stop thickening so quickly, and I want a thicker trunk right now. So this little guy, I potted when it was like this size. Literally, it was almost identical to this. You can see the trees are very similar right now. But you can see that the trunk, while it's thickened, it's slowed down a lot. And this I would like to be twice as thick as it is right now when I repot it into a pot like this. So if you remember, how do we get a thick trunk? We put the tree in a bigger pot in order for it to grow faster. Now, I wouldn't put this in a really big pot, like a pot like this right now, because this root ball is small. So I don't want the roots to start getting lost in the pot and growing out really, you know, way down over here. And what happens is, you know, parts of the pot will dry out, the other parts will stay super wet. So you really just want to kind of upsize your pot as you go. I probably wouldn't do much bigger than this one right now. So I think this is a really good size. I could even keep it smaller than this one just because we took some of the roots out there. But put some of that perlite in there again. Put a little bit more soil before I put the tree in, because I want to be able to see that base. And I'm not going to tie it again because it's going to be heavy enough. Soil, I mean. Yeah, there's a lot of good little pieces of granite in this soil, which allows the tree to breathe. Perlite. I should have mixed the soil ahead of time, but it's fine. Just kind of mixing it as I go. Now, when I repot trees in bonsai soil, I'll put shredded sphagnum moss as a top dressing to help regulate water. But when I have, a lot of organic soil like this, you don't need to worry about that part. So let me turn the tree a little bit like this now that I'm realizing. Yeah, you don't really need to worry about that part. I'll probably eventually get rid of this branch right here. Just a heads up. But I'm gonna plant it at an angle right now. So that way I don't have anything like completely straight up and down. If it was like this, that would be a straight up and down kind of trunk. And you don't really want straight lines. You don't find a lot of straight lines in nature. So I'm planting it at a little bit of an angle here. So that way the tree will grow in a nice little asymmetrical way. All right, we're almost done. And what I'll do is water these guys, and again, put them in kind of a little shady spot for a little while. Maybe about a week, and then I'll kind of move it back into the sun and let it do its thing. But because they're in this bigger pot, these things are going to grow significantly. And now that I've cleaned the roots off and got some better soil, put some nutrients back into it, again, they're gonna respond really well. So here was the former soil. Really it looks like sand and peat and pine bark. It was really good for developing these roots. It had, plenty of space for air and water to percolate. But there we go. This guy and this guy. Go this way. You know what? I think I need to repot this. I think I repotted it a year or two ago. I gotta look at my pictures, but it's about time to repot. But yeah, as you can see, these guys are really similar in terms of how they started to this tree here. So these ones will just get a lot bigger than this tree much quicker. So having them again in these big pots allows the trees to get thicker, allows the roots to grow, allows the trunks to grow, the branches to get more dense. So there you go. Now another thing that's exciting is, remember I told you about those little berries that are on the tree? If you plant them, you can grow your own. So I've grown about 7 or 8 of these guys, and this is a year of growth. And I don't think I've trimmed these at all. I've just let them grow out, so it's almost time to put some wire. Actually, it is time to put some bend in the trunks, so that way we can have a little bit of movement. But that's going to be the first thing we do, is just bending the trunk, not doing anything else. And I can even like tie this down and allow the tree to grow back straight up that way. So there's a lot of ways that you can bend your trunks down. But starts here, turns into something like this, and then turns into the other one. So just trust that process. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. I think that's about it, but don't forget to water. Oh yeah, follow me on ZanesTrees on Instagram and TikTok and all the other places.